What's going on? Today we're going to talk about how to reinvent yourself after a challenge, after adversity, after some kind of struggle. My name is Michael Barayev. I'm here with my co-host, my partner, Eric Shizzle Dizzle Wizzle. It's my boy. And what we're doing today is what? We spitting fire. Let's talk about challenges, struggles, adversity, how you actually reinvent yourself. Like something that I learned a long time ago was that no matter what happens, you're going to go through a challenge. No matter what happens, no matter what business you're in, you're going to go through a struggle. You're going to have death, health, wealth. Shit's going to happen. Like today we had a situation with someone's health, not so good today. It was a very challenging day for us today, I would say, right? We had one of our team members that, got affected, had to go to the hospital, right? And that stuff happens. Shit happens, right? The question is, how do you reinvent yourself? When a major shift happens in your life, how do you make that shift? So my question to you is this. What do you think most people do when a struggle or adversity kicks in? And then we're going to talk about how people need to reinvent themselves. Like, what do you think people do mostly? And like, what stops them from becoming that person they need to become?
I think, and this just immediately popped into mind. I think about, there's an analogy or a metaphor, I guess you would call it. It's a frog in a frying pan. I don't know if you ever heard that one, right? Where the frog, you put a frog into a frying pan, you turn the stove on low, and the frog doesn't realize that it's getting hotter because it's a very slow process of getting hot until it's too late and they actually become fried frog, right? So most people in life, I think it's like their life changes so incrementally slow that they don't realize how far they've come, how far they've changed, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I think most people want to reinvent themselves when they're going down the wrong path, but a lot of times you don't realize it, right? There's another quote that I like is, chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken.
Whew,
so
that's powerful.
I think we don't realize that we need a change until all of a sudden we wake up one day and we're like, holy shit, I'm going down the wrong path. And then you realize, man, I want to reinvent myself. Or you have some type of trigger or life event.
Or trauma even.
Or trauma where something dramatic happens and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I need to change who I am or where I'm going because if I don't, rain clouds are coming.
So let me ask you a question. How do you reinvent yourself? Like, what is the number one way for someone to say, you know what? I need to change something in my life. I need to reinvent my identity, reinvent my belief systems, reinvent who I am and what I'm about.
I think there's a few ways. I think sometimes it's easier to start with action and behavior than it is to change your, how you think. Because sometimes if you just start doing things that are different than what you're used to, you'll become the actions, you become who your body tells you to become just based on the actions that you're taking. And I also think that it really helps to kind of let go of who you think you are. It's a kind of a very Buddhist philosophical approach, but I think a lot of people have trouble reinventing themselves because they're so solidified in their character, in their personality and who they think they have to be, that them making those shifts become, it's too hard for them to do that. So, there's another old phrase, I'm going to throw them all out here, that goes something like, you can become who you want to be when you let go of who you think you are.
Wow.
So you have to kind of let go of certain things that you think of yourself, I believe. Start taking some actions, right? You don't have to necessarily change internally for you to start changing externally.
Yeah.
And your mind will catch up to your body.
You know what's crazy? What I realize is that we're all made up of certain beliefs and thoughts and programming that we've been conditioned to believe. Like, for example, like some people think that living in a penthouse is much, much better than living on the first floor or living in a house. Like, think about it. Like, why does someone believe that living in a penthouse is much more fruitful or the view is much nicer than living in a house with a nice backyard? Like, what makes that difference? And by the way, there's perspectives on everything, right? Some people love the penthouse, some people love the house, but like, why are certain people conditioned to believe a certain thing? I think that a lot of people, in my humble but accurate opinion, they're living a life where they're living it for somebody else. And changing your identity, in my opinion, is something that you have to do to kind of figure out, what do you want? What do you like? What do you truly want to actually, accomplish in your life? Like, for example, I had to reinvent myself when I was 24 years old. I was saying, what am I really trying to accomplish here? I was knocking on doors and I was like, I can't do this for a long time and just make money. I needed to build a team because I wanted to have a team. So I needed to reinvent myself and say, wait a minute, the belief systems that I have right now, like I like being around grass as an example. Like, you like being around grass. Why? Do you actually like being around grass? Or is it because you think that by being around grass, you're going to get some sort of feeling?
Well,
right, as an example. So that's why I like questioning your own beliefs and questioning your identity. Like, why do I believe what I believe? Why am I who I am? Like, I had to question myself when it came to my anger. Like, why am I so angry? And I had to start thinking, like, I'm only angry because something triggers me. Okay, then why am I getting angry because something triggered me. And I started digging deep, and I started realizing that it's just past trauma. And just, it's a habit.
Do you think,
yeah.
well, sorry to cut you off.
No,
but
no.
Do you think that you need a new environment in order to reinvent yourself, or do you think you can reinvent yourself in the environment that you've been in?
You can reinvent yourself as well. Massive adaptation and change helps a lot. Like, for example, I'm going to Greece next week, right? So I'm going to be in a new environment, new place, and I already know I'm going to be thinking. Like, for me, I'm the kind of guy that when I go to new places, I'm thinking. So the new environment can definitely help. It doesn't always necessarily help, because sometimes you need to sit down in the environment you're in and just pause and say, okay, watch all the activity. Like, sometimes, I don't know if you do this, but I do this a lot. I sit down in the office for like 20 minutes, I'm just looking. I'm watching how people are interacting with people. I'm watching how people are making phone calls. I'm watching people walk back and forth, eat their lunch, whatever. And I'm sitting there and evaluating, like, what is going on. And sometimes you need to just take a step back and just look things from a different perspective and say, you know what, slow down the horses. Like, for example, why are we building a business in the first place? If you're just building a business for just money, God bless your soul, it's never gonna survive. Because just doing it for money just ends up like, it's just too much pain and trauma and challenges in a business for you to just do it for the money. There has to be some sort of other benefits, like maybe friendships. Like, I love building businesses because I'm able to build with my friends. Like, that's why I kind of didn't really like the aspect of coaching, because coaching sometimes is based on what? It's me coaching somebody. I don't mind doing it. I love it. I'm passionate about it. But it never gave me that fulfillment that I used to get when I was building something with a bunch of group of people, seeing my buddies win with me, seeing you make money, seeing him make money. And it was just kind of like a camaraderie. Because what I was always missing was this brotherhood. You know, growing up, I didn't have that brotherhood. I didn't have that clique, right? When I went to a foster care system, I didn't have that brotherhood. It was the brotherhood versus me. So I always wanted that kind of camaraderie, that kind of militarized sports kind of camaraderie. And I started to reinvent myself to figure myself out. I'm like, wait a minute, I do like being around teams and stuff like that.
How long do you think it takes to effectively reinvent yourself?
It takes a lot of time. You can reinvent yourself. It depends on the situation.
I mean, 1 month, 5 months,
it could be 1 day. It could be, like you said, trauma kicks in, boom, you reinvent yourself. I think it takes months. I think it takes months, in my opinion, because you're still figuring yourself out on what you want and what you don't want. Like, I needed to figure out, like, where's my direction. And once you figure out that direction, you commit to it and you act upon it. And you don't back out because it gets hard. Like, there's been a lot of commitments that I made that got really fucking difficult. Like, losing weight is not easy. Gaining muscle is not easy, right? Anything you do is not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it as long as you stick right through it. So for me, what the biggest thing for me was, in 2020 was one of my biggest pivotal moments in my life when I had to sit down and say, okay, whoa, my whole business was on pause. And I had to sit there and think and reinvent myself and kind of reinvent my identity. Because I don't know if you remember this, but my identity was attached to my money. My identity was attached to how much money I was making. My identity was attached to what? My business. And if my business was doing good, I felt good. If my business was not doing good, I felt like shit. And I've changed myself completely, where now business can be great, business can go to shit. It doesn't matter. My identity is not because of my business. My identity is because of who I am, what I'm about, and what I believe in, and my values, and who I am as a person. And I would say it took about a year or two to kind of figure out. It was a book called Letting Go that changed me a lot. Power versus Force helped me a lot. A lot of these, introspective books helped me understand who I really was on the inside, to not identify myself as a entrepreneur or as a business owner or as a rich person or as a poor person or as an angry person. Like, I threw out all those identities onto the garbage and I said, I am Michael. I am myself.
I think also, to that point, you have to have some mental clarity in order for you to be able to start that process, because if your brain is foggy or cloudy, it's hard to reinvent yourself, because it's like you don't even know which direction to go.
It's like trying to fight someone in the smoke.
Yeah, so I think that, and how you create clarity is maybe another whole, topic, but there's a video online about one of the most important success principles, and they said, people who are super successful are able to create clarity, or they seek clarity at least. But
clarity is seeking the truth, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's also, it's seeing things for what they are, transparency, and it's being able to kind of
100%.
see the pieces and the whole at the same time.
Yep.
But for me, I think you said, something that was important, introspection. I take long walks and I look inward and I say, okay, who am I? Am I the person that I want to be? I am Fatima. Am I the person that I want to be? Am I the person that I need to be? And if I'm not, then, I don't think there has to be always massive shifts to reinvent yourself. It could be a small shift, but, it's kind of like that thing where small shifts over time create big differences.
You know what helps me a lot? Like what helps me on a daily, weekly basis is for me to say, okay, I'm here.
Here comes the whiteboard.
Hey, listen, when you see the whiteboard, you got to get excited. This is where I'm at. I need to know where it is that I'm trying to go. Right? Where it is that I'm trying to go. A lot of people, the reason why they can't reinvent themselves, in my humble opinion, is that they don't know where they're trying to go. They don't know what result and outcome they want. Like, for example, I knew that I wanted to live a certain type of life. I'm not talking about the money. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a certain type of life where I wake up at a specific time and I'm able to make a choice on what I eat. Like for me, it may not be as big a thing for you, but for me, knowing that I can go buy a certain amount of food and not worry about my finances was one of the biggest things for me. Like I remember I used to buy a sandwich in a subway station because there was a little deli in the 47th Street, and I used to buy a sandwich for $6 and $5, and I used to tally up how much I spent that day, and my budget for that day was I cannot spend more than $10 on food for that day. Like that was my budget. My budget was $300 a month on food, okay? Because I remember I wasn't making enough money, right? The inconsistency of being in the sales business of, door to door, 47th Street, store to store, all that stuff. I didn't know if I was gonna make money or not because there were some days where I made $200 and there was weeks where I would make zero consistently, right? And it was a very, very volatile business for me. And I remember all I really wanted to do was just buy a freaking $15 sandwich or a $15 meal and not give a flying shit because I had enough money in my bank account. That's what I really, truly wanted. And I remember that like it was yesterday because I remember I did not want to be held hostage by a freaking dollar bill. So I knew where I wanted to be. I knew what I wanted. I knew exactly, I didn't know the dreams that I wanted to accomplish. I just knew the nightmares. And I think when you know exactly what you do not want, the life that you do not want, the life that you're literally looking far away from, like you're just looking back and say, fuck no, that's not the life I'm gonna live. You now have to reinvent, and say, you know what, I need to reinvent myself. I say, what do I need to change about me to get the outcome that I want? What do I need to do? What am I willing to sacrifice? And at that time, I made a decision. I will sacrifice 7 days a week to hustle, to figure this money thing out. Because I wasn't good at it. No one taught me. No one mentored me on that. I needed to figure that sucker out. I needed to understand finance. I needed to understand where money comes from. I needed to understand, holy shit, money is just debt. Holy shit, money is not the root of all evil. Those nonsense people are fed in their fucking lifetime. Money can solve the problem that I'm in, which is being able to buy a sandwich. So to me, I had to reinvent myself multiple times because certain shifts in my life kept smacking me. Certain situations kept smacking me. I was like, I need to change. I need to change. I need to change. And when you have that kind of mentality, I think when you start really getting introspective, like you were talking about, and understanding where it is you want to be, which you need clarity for that, obviously. Once you kind of figure that out a little bit, you can start working backwards and say, you know what? I need to stop doing this. You know what? I need to reinvent the way I think. My thinking is horse trash. And that's kind of like the phases that I've been in my life. I can shifting my thinking, absolutely with action, but understanding that I needed to change. And those shifts, once they happen, oh my God, once you reinvent yourself, life is incredible.
I think mostly for me, it's you kind of have to also understand that who you were isn't like you're going to change. Life's going to make you change anyway. So sometimes rather than trying to like change your vehicle, you just have to grab the steering wheel and just kind of drive it a little bit, right? Because like the vehicle is going to make you change anyway. Life's going to make you change, and life's already I think life will naturally reinvent you. It's like you going down a river, right? Your environment changes, the water changes. One time it's high rapid, sometimes it's slow. So just keep your eye. That
life is never
you can't
constant.
let go of the steering wheel for too long.
Yeah.
You can let go for a few minutes. But if you just let go of the steering wheel, you're going to crash into some derail.
Life is not constant. It changes all the time. You got to change with it. That's literally what it is. Just kind of like, I look at life as a wave, right? You're either going to be on top of the wave and surfing that bad boy, or you're going to be crushed by the wave. You make that choice. And a lot of people choose to be under that wave all the time with water splashing in their face and they're almost drowning all the time. Life sucks for them. They're struggling all the time. Or you could be the guy that's like a surfing on top and just right? That's how I look at it. So I just choose to always be on top of that wave and ride that fucking wave because struggles are going to happen. Challenges are going to happen. You're either going to ride that bitch or let that bitch ride you. So I appreciate you guys. Hopefully you got some valuable content from my boy E. Crizzle, E. Shizzle, E. Dizzle. We appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the channel and share this with a friend. We're growing our subs, which I appreciate you guys. All love. Thank you so much for the thousands of subscribers we're at right now. So thank you so much. God bless you guys. And we'll see you guys in the next video.